On this episode of Star Trek Universe, we are talking about the second episode of the third season of Star Trek Picard, Disengage. Right after these words from our mystery sponsors.
Welcome to Star Trek Universe, the podcast where you get to listen in on good old Matt and Dave just jabbering away about the Trek.
Just chewing the fat, man.
Just chewing it good. My name's Matthew Carroll.
I'm David C. Robertson, just loafing around the barbershop, playing a little checkers and talking about Star Trek with my oldest buddy.
Okay, so I'm just diving right in, man. I'm going to talk about this episode because I feel more excited by this episode of Star Trek than any episode of Star Trek in the past 20 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because of the moment, the last 20 seconds of the episode, or like last minute of the episode, that moment between Picard and Beverly was more interesting than anything Discovery's ever done. And I don't mean to badmouth Discovery in this moment.
Yeah,
I'm just
why you gotta tear something else down to lift something up?
It's just the thing that's been on for the last 5 years or whatever. I just found this episode pulled me in. That last moment pulled me in a way that nothing has. And I don't even know if I like it. I just was fascinated and pulled into the story. The wordless communication between Beverly and Picard, and the shame on her face mixed with regret, mixed with just this knowledge that she communicates purely by her facial expression, and her inability to speaks such volumes to Picard, and he's like, I know. You know what I mean? The knowledge that he knows it's his son purely because of the reaction of Beverly, because he knows Beverly so well. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was so freaking effective.
And it only took constant, really awkward prodding from Riker to get him to understand what was happening.
No, see, that's just Picard. He's not going to bring it up or talk about it, but he's having the same thoughts. He's like, you mentioned it last episode when he says, I'm her son. Picard has a look on his face last episode oh. Well, doing the math, that's the last time I had sex with her.
Yeah.
That's the last time I engaged.
It's funny, though, how, awkward Riker is do the math, Jean-Luc. Are you really not seeing what I'm seeing?
Are you not seeing what I'm seeing, buddy? Come on. Yeah, and I think he is. He's just not willing to entertain it because it's such a huge thing, and he's just not going to... He's not going to be flippant about it. He's not going to be silly about it, but he's clearly, he sees it too. And in that moment, the question's been fully posed by Riker at this point. And clearly, Jean-Luc has picked up what Riker's put down. And when Beverly just can't say anything, that moment is so good. And what's even more interesting going forward, we just had this conversation about there's 500 souls on this vessel.
Right.
The thing to do, according to the captain, is to give this person over. Uh-huh. One soul is not worth 500. We're not going to risk all these people for this smuggler. No matter if he has a heart of gold or not, we're not going to risk it. And then Picard says, belay that order. As soon as he's just wordlessly, telepathically communicated by Beverly, he's belay that order. The Admiral's in charge, who, I don't even know if that works because he's not a commissioned officer anymore, I guess. I don't know how it all works, but I guess he can still step in.
I feel because he was belay that order, he's my son. And then Shaw is just shit, all right. He knows, oh, maybe he's a dad himself, shit, this is happening. Okay.
Yeah. Well, it seemed like Picard says belay that order and steps in and starts giving orders, and they all listen to him over Shaw. They don't like turn to Shaw and go, well, what should we do here, Captain? They just start doing whatever he says. So I'm assuming there's something in the chain of command that says Picard, even as a retired admiral, is still in, like, somehow has leverage over Shaw, like has whatever the word I'm looking for is. He's in command of Shaw even in this moment. Rank, that's the word I'm looking for. I guess even a retired admiral is above captain. That's weird, but I guess.
Yeah.
But I love it because it's Picard. Sure, you can say whatever you want, but the stereotype of Picard is that he makes the decisions, the hard decisions, the right decisions. You know, he like deliberates and makes those right decisions. But this is not the needs of the many right here.
Yeah, tell that to Ensign Lynch.
I don't know who Ensign Lynch is off the top of my head.
From First Contact, that's what Lily says to Picard. Tell that to Ensign Lynch.
That's right. I remember now.
He like even introduces her to the dead Borg body of Ensign Lynch. Yes, this was Ensign Lynch. Like, good Lord, you're just out here murdering Ensign Lynch. You were brought back from the Borg, you asshole.
Yep. I remember now. Thank you. I just think the idea of Picard not making the hard call here, making the selfish call in many ways, being like, I'm willing to put 500 souls at risk to like save my son and to like save this Beverly's son, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, and they say throughout the episode, they say like, you know, Beverly's not awake. She can't defend you. Like, you need to defend yourself. And then Beverly comes in and lets him know what's going on. And it's just a big moment. And it's Picard kind of making mathematically the wrong decision. And if anyone on that ship dies in the next couple episodes while they're fighting Vadic, which probably will happen, that's blood on his hand that he chose to do a selfish thing to save his own family, you know?
Yeah.
I kind of hate that call as like a, you know, just a utilitarian. I hate that call, but like it's compelling. It's compelling as hell, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Cool, man.
What'd you think?
I enjoyed it, but I had several issues that I didn't really, you know, care for.
Oh yeah. Well, elucidate them, my friend.
Sure. First of all, she names Jean-Luc's kid Jack.
Yeah,
that's messed up, man.
They were both friends of Jack.
Still messed up.
I don't know. It doesn't bother me.
Messed up. But yeah. So I was kind of annoyed by how there's a certain element of Riker and Picard's relationship that I have never gotten past. Like, and it started somewhere in the movies where it just became like, they're two old war buddies and Riker just talks to Jean-Luc however. And there's this like weird forced humor to it sometimes that I just don't like.
Yeah. And
there was a lot of that here.
I totally hear that. I think that's very true. It didn't bother me in this case, but yeah, I think that is true of their relationship for sure.
Yeah. Now, I think there are a few things though that really kind of bugged me, and one of them was like we had, I don't know how many times Shaw said something about not risking 500 souls, but it felt like at least 3 times, and it was annoying. Like, yeah, I get it, dude. Yeah, needs of the many. Okay.
I think it was a couple of times, but yeah, I think it was to drive home the point that, like, at the end of the episode, when Picard makes that decision, he is making, in many ways, the wrong decision. You know, like, by Star Trek logic, needs of the many, and he is not choosing the many. I mean, he's but at the same time, you risk the many to save the one sometimes.
Yeah.
That's often a captain's call, but that's never really been Picard's style. Exactly. And so, I don't know. It just, it compels me because we know his, like, love for family. We know his, desire to have legacy.
Yeah.
And I like Jack. I like him a lot. I really like Jack. He's really fun. Smuggler with a heart of gold, man. The whole thing at the beginning where he's, sort of playing cat and mouse with those Fenris Rangers, and he's like, "Are you trying to bribe us with Romulan ale?" He's, "No, that's an antiseptic. I'm planning to bribe you with these." And he pulls out the guns. Like, it's just good stuff, man. It's just like well played, well acted. I like Jack more than most of the new characters in Trek. Like, I just really like Jack a lot, and it's just hard to pull that off. It's hard to introduce a new character and make me care about them among the Pantheon, especially when you're putting them up against Riker, Picard, Crusher, all of the crew that's coming. Worf, who we get to see this episode, and I still care about Jack a lot, I want to see more Jack. It's impressive to write and act that character in a way that makes me feel that.
Yeah, and I definitely got a feeling of a young Picard. Like, young, reckless Picard from Tapestry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was a lot that I loved about this episode. There was stuff that bugged me. Sure, I'll get to the stuff that I love, I swear to God. I swear to Q. Whoever. I hate that Sneed had an obsession with old human relics. I didn't see the point in that. It's just like way too many freaking aliens in Star Trek have like an obsession with old human shit.
Sure.
And it just makes the universe small. It annoys me. And also, I liked Sneed, though. I liked him enough that I'm annoyed that they beheaded him immediately.
I was annoyed, except I was, again, so...
It was still a cool shot.
But we've had a ton of things where they try to misdirect us in these shows, Picard, Discovery, all of them. And I don't ever feel like they pull it off. I did not think for a second that the person she was corresponding with was Worf. And really? I love that. Yeah, it just never crossed my mind. Like, we talked about it last episode, and I was like, oh man, I bet it's someone nefarious, because the way they're hiding their identity. And I should have thought, like, oh, they're hiding their identity, it's probably someone we know. Like, sure, that may be what I should have thought, but like...
Yeah.
Especially knowing that we get interaction between those two characters based on the trailers. But man, it surprised me. And I loved being surprised, and it was a good surprise. I liked it.
I don't think I thought of it, but I did see... I saw people online being like, hey, so the handler is totally Worf, right? And everyone was like, oh yeah, that's what I was thinking too. And I'm like, shit, why didn't I see that?
Yeah, didn't see it at all, and I was glad I didn't, because it made me smile. I was like, oh man, that makes absolute sense. But it's great. Yeah. It's great. Yeah. It was a surprise.
All right, so Shaw keeps mentioning, or he mentions a couple times, if he's even her kid, he might just be claiming he's her kid.
Right.
Why didn't they do a DNA test? Like, that shit used to be done on TNG all the time. We're like, well, the DNA matches. Cool.
Right. I think it's probable that it was just, very quick. It all happened pretty fast.
Yeah. Or do they not, check, the people in the prisons, before they put them in the brig? Do they, is he just, able to, dig into his sleeve and pull out a little device to mess with? I don't know. It's just little stuff like that really bugs me.
Yeah. I hear you. If he's a smuggler, I'm assuming he has some sort of way of concealing it. Cloaking device or something.
My final thing that I'm going to bitch about, I'm going to say this. Look, as much as I love all the ode to, Wrath of Khan and the first 6 movies last week, man, I am disappointed he is Picard's son, and man, I am disappointed they went into a freaking nebula to get away from this scenery-chewing villain. They're still desperately trying to do Wrath of Khan after all these years. They will not stop trying to do Wrath of Khan over and over, and it is so annoying to me.
We'll see. We'll see what they do next episode. I mean, if we end up in a submarine battle, sure, you're probably right. But going into a nebula, that's a thing that happens all the time. And I think this works. I think the Picard son situation works really well.
Uh-huh.
As we've discussed, it's something that like is great for resolving his character.
Yeah, the whole legacy aspect of it, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a big part of Generations is him losing family, and like what would give Picard a reason to do something new except for having a new chance at legacy, a new chance to know his family, you know?
And by the way, I keep seeing people complain about this because on the last episode, they showed that, remember that archaeological find that Picard's old mentor brought to him and put him, and it was a whole thing about another preservers or something. He was talking about how rare it was and how wondrous it was, and we saw it on the desk there at the Chateau Picard in the last episode. And I saw so many like people talking about this on in the groups and whatnot. Just like finally that thing gets some respect, because the last time we saw it in Generations, it was after the Enterprise D had crashed, and Picard just like picks it up and tosses it aside. And he goes, here it is, and picks up his family album. And a lot of people are like, oh, that was a misstep in Generations. I don't think it was. Whether it was intentional or not, I loved that, because when he picks that up, and knowing the significance of it, that his mentor gave it to him, and it was such a rare thing, he picks it up, and he tosses it aside when he sees his family album. That whole movie was about Picard coming to the realization that he is the last Picard. And that, this is all he has of his family now, is this like photo album of memories. And to him, that is more precious and that is more rare, because he is the last Picard. That is even more precious to him.
Yeah, that seems absolutely deliberate.
Yeah, that felt absolutely deliberate, and I don't think it was a bad call on the part of Generations. There was plenty of things to bitch about in Generations. That wasn't one of them. Anyway. So, thus ends my bitch session about this episode. The things I loved, I love the way Picard figured out who Vadic was after, who Vadic was after with the transporter dampeners.
Yeah.
He was just waiting on them to like start transporting somebody. Like, okay, now we know who they're after. Cool. Oh, that's no. The bitch session's not over. I hated that that Rafi's ex-husband conveniently lived on the planet, and Sneed. He knows Sneed. He has a bar. Why is their son okay with dad hanging out with gangsters and not okay with mom? That's silly. And also the dad's a dick. But I was okay with that part. That was good storytelling.
Yeah, I thought it was really good storytelling. And the dad being a bartender that like maybe has like whatever iffy people in his bar that he doesn't really get into. He just like, what's out of sight is out of mind kind of thing. That's different than like his mom being obsessed with stuff and being a drug addict, Right.
It is. But at the same time, like my biggest problem is just that he conveniently lives on Metalis.
Yeah.
I just don't like when they make the universe small. They could have done something completely different, or just a little different.
Sure. They just needed someone for her to connect to.
I know.
And they also needed someone to... I don't think this is a case of like making the universe small, because this isn't a character we know. This is just a coincidence, yes. But it's not like
it's really like, big honking ass coincidence, yes.
I don't know. I don't know anything about this world or whatever. It could be that it's just all in the same sector and she's just worked here before, and that's why she has a husband here and knows the lay of the land or whatever. There's lots of headcanon you could throw at it, but
maybe that's why she was assigned to that world, because she's so familiar with it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
There's plenty of headcanon that works, but like for the most part, I just think every once in a while you're gonna bump into people and the fact that it's her husband is just like, okay, well, that's just one of the people that she knows. In this case,
Worf with the Kurleth was awesome. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was.
I loved the bit with Picard. First of all, that after that conversation in the turbo lift with Riker, Picard is so extra when he's talking to that kid in the cell, because he's just like asking him questions about his past and everything. And then all of a sudden he just yells, "Who's your father?"
Mm-hmm. I never had one.
Yeah, and that was cutting.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just funny because he was being so professional up to that point that he just yells, "Who is your father?" Who's your daddy and what does he do?
Who is your daddy and what does he do?
But yeah, I loved the bit with Picard arguing that Beverly would not have been in on the criminal operations, and Jack was like, "Who do you think taught me?"
Mm-hmm.
Because it serves as a fantastic follow-up to her secret ops adventure in Chain of Command. Like, she literally went and helped Picard and Worf destroy a Cardassian weapons factory. Mm-hmm. And it was a great follow-up to Season 3's The High Ground, when she gets kidnapped by a radical terrorist group, and Picard has her, like, basically go undercover and pretend that she's getting in with the leader and whatnot. Like, mm-hmm. I really like that Beverly is a badass and is, down to clown as far as, like, revolting a little bit and getting dirty.
Yeah, getting her hands dirty a little bit. I love the line he says about, like, who do you know that stayed the same? And he's like, have you just been planting roots in your vineyard while everybody moved on?
Yes.
I love that line, man.
That was all fantastic. That was a really great conversation. A lot of really strong dialogue and conversation in this episode. And also, Vatic is badass. She's hilarious.
Yeah, I like Vatic a lot.
Really fun scenery chewer,
She throws a ship at them.
Yeah, she throws a ship.
Like, what did she do? I think she threw a ship at us, Captain. It's really good.
How? Yeah, and I loved Ensign LaForge, where she was like, and by the way, she's not LeVar's daughter. There's a different LaForge daughter who is played by his real life daughter.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So this is just a different LaForge altogether?
No, this is his daughter, but it's not his real life daughter. This is LaForge's daughter. It's not LeVar Burton's daughter.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm saying. Sorry.
I never thought that it was, I guess. Did you tell me that a different time? And
I told you that last week. And
okay.
This LaForge's daughter is not LeVar Burton's daughter.
Okay.
But I did love her bit in here where she was just like, yeah, my dad used to tell me that anything that blah, 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 and anything in physics could be altered to be turned into a weapon or whatever. and Shaw's just like, shut up, get back to work. I don't know. It's like, he's just such an asshole. Yeah. I really like Shaw so much.
I like Shaw a lot. I like the entire crew. I like the crew and how they interact with Shaw. I just really enjoy it a lot.
And I loved how Vatic knew about him.
Yeah. Oh, man.
She was just
I absolutely loved it. Given your psychological profile, I'm glad you've remained functional. I'm assuming that means he's an alcoholic, which is just such a beautiful way of saying that. It's hilarious and it's good. Oh, it's really good.
He could be a high-functioning sociopath.
Possibly. It definitely took me to alcohol, like functional alcoholic, but that's possible.
I mean, I don't know, but I did think it was funny, or maybe a high-functioning narcissist, because Seven did really basically get her way by keying into his own ego. Like, do you want to be the captain who let two legends die?
Yeah, but that's just regular old ways to manipulate people. I mean,
I don't know.
It could be
very, very fueled by his
The way she said it just made me think that it's something that would get him, that would undermine him in a way that alcohol to me makes sense. But yeah, it could be.
We'll see. But I like his character, and I hate his character, which is kind of the perfect thing at this point.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I don't have a whole lot on this episode as far as all that is concerned. I enjoyed it for the most part. There was shit that bugged me.
Yeah,
I mean,
I loved it, and the more we talk about it, the more I loved it. I really did. It's all that last scene that like makes me love it. Like I liked it up till that point, but then the Beverly just like communicating with Picard through shame, just pure shame, and like that just got me, man. I loved it so much. But there's so many other great lines. I loved how they set up, you know, I called that it was probably his son before we started the season, and then last episode I was like, yeah, it's his son. When he came on with a British accent, and like it's definitely his son. But then and confirmed that he was Beverly's son. But this episode, he starts the episode by speaking French. He says "mon ami," which is funny because it's something that Picard, I don't know that has ever said "mon ami," but Q always says it as a way of like picking at Picard's Frenchness, which I thought was funny because like this is probably Jack possibly knowing that he's Picard's son and wanting to connect with his father's like know more about his people, so he's learned a little French, and I just thought that was really fun. And I loved that he says, if I'm not mistaken, history remembers you with one less pip. I thought that was such a
great,
good line. Oh, it's just so good. It's such a good line. And then he's like, "You've done these things." He's naming all these like criminal acts. He's like, "The people that hate me, they're like low-level gangsters and fathers of daughters everywhere." Like. Honestly, it reminded me of a character we've spoken a lot about recently, is the outrageous Okana. Like it gave me a little bit of a sense of that he's a little bit of a womanizer / smuggler with a heart of gold. I love it so much. I love his character. The fact that he's a Picard and he's got that like I like him regardless of who he is. If he turned out to not be a Picard, I'd be fine with it. I like his character, but like the fact he's a Picard makes it like ooh, putting all that like the genetic like disposition to be a great leader and like I don't know, tactician and all this stuff in the mind of this like smuggler with a heart of gold that's like morally gray. Like I love it, man.
I feel like there's some asshole Trekkie out there who is arguing that he shouldn't have to pay child support because the best Starfleet captains were deadbeat dads.
I don't think child support's probably a thing in a society where they don't have need anymore. Like where everyone's fed and clothed.
Well, I'm saying there's an asshole Star Trek fan in our world who is trying to argue that look, Kirk and Picard both deadbeat dads.
It's true. It's true.
And Sisko abandoned his kid to be in the freaking wormhole. Yeah,
it's true. In the freaking wormhole.
Janeway left her dog.
And if she's nothing but if not a dog mom. You know, she's one of those that would say she's the mom. They also, speaking of Jack's character, they also give him the chance to sacrifice himself this episode, and he tries to go and like forced to sacrifice himself to save his mom and to save the ship, and that's just good character development, man. It's just good stuff.
Yeah, I will say, because of a couple of arguments I've seen online, you know, this is the 25th century. They've cured cancer and most diseases. I'm pretty sure Beverly's geriatric pregnancy isn't going to be an issue. I've seen quite a few people complaining like, she would have been so old when she got pregnant. That's not possible. Geriatric pregnancies are 35 and after.
Yeah,
but silly. This is the 25th century.
Yeah, that's silly.
I know, but I'm just like, what are y'all talking about? Like, this is make-believe.
Yeah, it's also like, I don't know, she's a medical officer with like amazing abilities. Like, I don't know. This is not what happened. I think he is the result of just like good old-fashioned boinking. But like, you know, could be a result of like IVF or something. Like whatever. They can explain it another time, but like, regardless, it just does not matter. It just does not matter. It makes sense that they could have had a kid at their age with all the health advancements for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm excited, man. I'm really wondering what the season's going to be though, because I can't imagine this entire season is going to be them running from the Shrike, right?
Right.
Like, maybe that'll be an ongoing thing, but, like, we know that we've got to meet up with other characters from, Deanna's got to meet up with them. LaForge has got to meet up with them at some point. Like, all these other characters are going to get in lore. Like, where do they... Like, it seems like we've started this very simple story, which I love. I love that the story is not trying to be a world-ending apocalypse. This is just the story of, like, someone wants to kill Picard's son that he just met. And Picard is deciding to save him. And that's the ensuing incident, and now we're just going to see what happens. And Vadic is fun villain. I'll peck, I'll jab, I'll take a piece of you at a time until you will only have the option of doing what you should have done in the first place. Give me Jack. Like, just so good, man.
Yeah, she was fantastic. I am concerned that they're leaning too heavily onto Wrath of Khan, but I really do desperately wish the franchise would move on from that, because I love Wrath of Khan, but Jesus.
I just don't see this as Wrath of Khan. Like, I did when I thought this was a person coming for vengeance, which is what we kind of thought when we were talking about the season.
I think it is.
You think Vadic's out for vengeance?
Yeah. I
don't agree at all.
I mean, based on what I've seen the producers saying about how she's got a particular issue with Starfleet.
Well, she may have a particular issue with Starfleet. That's a whole different deal.
And perhaps Picard. Like, I don't know.
The thing about Wrath of Khan that makes it so signature and that, like, really makes it work is this personal relationship between Khan and Kirk. And they're like the Kirk personally, like, wronged Khan, and that's what the whole thing is about. This right now is just like a fun bounty hunter, and I love that. I don't think this is Khan at all. Yes, there's a son. Yes, he's at risk, but, like, right now, that's the only similarity. And so I think to be like, this is too Khan, like, whatever, it's a nebula. Like, oh, I'm sorry, is it a Star Trek episode with a nebula, Dave?
Is a Star Trek episode with a heretofore unknown son and the ship escaping into a nebula so they can escape the sensors. It's feeling real Wrath of Khan, man. I'm sorry. It just is.
I disagree. It's two things that are similar, and one of them being a big deal. The emergence of a hereto unknown son, sure, I give you that. But that is the only, like, similarity that is of note. They have disappeared into nebulas on, like, 15% of every Star Trek media ever created. And so, like, I think that's, like, not a thing that we can really count as, like, this is to Wrath of Khan. Like, he's got a new son. Okay, that's it. That's the only thing that's similar to me.
The Wrath of Khan references in the previous episode are still weighing on me. Like, what was just, like, a fun, like, aesthetic thing has now become, like, okay, this is actually becoming just, like, a copy. Like, this is weird. Like, I hope I don't feel this way in episode 3. I really do.
Me too. For your sake, not mine. I'm going to enjoy it regardless, or I'm going to enjoy it if I enjoy it. I don't really even care if it's a copy of Wrath of Khan, but also, I just don't think it is.
We'll see.
If she'd been out for vengeance against Picard, I would be on board with your Khan thing. And that's what we discussed before the season started, and that's what we were like, ugh, this is going to be too Wrath of Khan, isn't it? But at this point, that's not the case. And, like, it's just like one major plot point is similar. And it's a major plot point that is perfect for Picard. And I'm just fine with it. I just don't have, like, the fact, it just kind of, like, underlies this idea that, like, these captains are out gallivanting around the galaxy and they end up, like, spreading their seed around the galaxy, and, like, they don't take the time to, like, follow up and make sure what's going on with their kin,
What kind of seed, Matt?
Apple seed.
You sure it's not a space seed? We're back to Khan.
Yeah, you're right. I relent. You're absolutely right.
That was pretty good.
That won me over. Good. Oh no, I agree. You won me over. This isn't sarcasm at all. Okay, you said we got some feedback. Let's read some feedback. You said we got a lot of feedback, is what you said. So let's do it. Let's do it.
I did. We were on a bit of a hiatus between episodes. Andre Sparks sent us one, said, hey guys, you asked what we fans thought about each show and how it relates to the fan base. So here's how I look at it. Basically, Discovery was the show that energized the fan base and pulled fans back in after the new trilogy was over. Then they wanted to diversify like the other universes started doing. They wanted to appeal to a broader audience. Enter Picard, old generation and 90s folks. Lower Decks, teens and early 20s. Prodigy, kids. Then, since they knew the old guard couldn't stay, they decided to take it back to its roots, but with a little more flair, Strange New Worlds. I think Section 31 will appear to the people who liked Halo or like more spy-type stuff, James Bond in space, maybe. Starfleet Academy, to be decided. So I think that's how they really break it down now with their universe. They all serve a purpose and are connected with all the great Star Trek history. Hope that made sense. Can't wait to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I see that. There's definitely like a different target audience for each one.
Yeah.
But I do feel like, for the most part, I feel like I'm the target audience for all of them.
Me too.
Except for Prodigy. But at the same time, it's one of my favorites. So even though I don't feel like the target audience, I still love it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are people like us who are like old schoolers to some degree, but we're just also pretty open-minded and enjoy a lot of different genres.
Indeed. But yeah, I totally see what Andre's talking about there with the way that they function and the way they all have purpose.
Yeah, I think he's mostly right about the intentions.
See.
kwilliams77@gmail.com he sends us an email titled The Rikers and said, hi fellas, been listening for about a year now. Finally have a thought to contribute. My theory on the Rikers' marriage troubles. I think when Will went to help Picard at the end of season 1, it reinvigorated his desire for more space adventures, and either A, Deanna and perhaps his daughter too didn't want him to leave or go off again, because that's not what they do now, which led to the tension, or B, Will thought that was how they would feel about it, so he kept the desire to himself, and that created resentment towards the women in his life, but he wouldn't talk about it, so then that created tension. I think B is less likely because of Deanna's empathetic nature and their Imazadi connection, but maybe she started feeling petty and passive-aggressive and decided if he wasn't going to talk about it, even though he should know she would know, then she wasn't going to bring it up either, trying to force him to be the one to bring it up. Or, a more fun thought, Riker developed the ability to block her from reading him over the years, and so Theory B comes back into play. I kind of love that idea. Anyway, that's how I would write it, but Picard writers tend to go in a very different direction than what I would like from them. One last thing, when Riker was complaining about having to give a speech no one really wants to hear, and Picard said he was giving a speech too, I really enjoyed how quickly Riker responded with, oh, but yours is going to be great. As in, I was definitely not calling you an old fart who goes on and on about boldly going. Not you, sir. Definitely not you. Thanks for the content, boys.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much.
That was listener Carrie.
Carrie, thank you for finally having an idea to throw in the old idea cauldron here.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a really good thought about Riker. What might be causing their estrangement?
I'm gonna really laugh if it winds up being something like, what's going on with you, and like have a really serious thing with Picard sitting down and saying, I know we haven't had a lot of time, but what's happening with you and the wife and whatnot? And he's just like, oh, daughter wants to go to a dance. There's gonna be a lot of boys there. I don't like them.
Sitting on the porch with a phaser.
Yeah, either something like that, or like, I accidentally crashed her period party. It was embarrassing. I freaked out. I didn't know what was going on. Just something really dopey, some kind of really dopey dad thing.
What did I see? What was it? There's some show where they have a period party, but they invite all the boys, but the boys just don't know what's going on.
That is a Bert Kirshner stand-up bit.
No, it was a show.
It might have been a show at some point, but that is a literal thing that happened to Bert Kushner or whatever his name is. Kirshner.
Yeah.
He's a stand-up comedian.
Yeah, I know. But
Years ago, he talked about this.
Interesting. I've definitely seen his stand-up, but there's some show where that happens, I'm pretty sure. Maybe not. Maybe you're right. Maybe I've conflated it all in my head.
Maybe. Timothy Castillo writes, "Holy smokes, you guys, season 3 and such. I have cautiously high hopes for this season. 2 great moments for me in the episode. The scene of Seven giving out launch orders reminded me of Riker's manual saucer section docking in the best way. And that whole part of Picard and Riker coming on board felt like a great Kirk Bones style of scene where Riker is fully supportive of Picard, but also able to take the piss out of Picard's melodrama. Also, 2 things I'm hoping for from this season: that we get a real moral, existential conundrum in this season, and that we get a Return of the King style ending. The ending of that movie may have lasted 3.5 more movies' length of time, but I'll be darned if I didn't feel satisfied when the credits rolled. I kind of hope the season plays out with the big cinematic stuff wrapped up by episode 6, because I do want all that, but that episodes 6 through 9 are a furtherance and conclusion of the fallout of the big event. I would suggest Captain America Civil War as an example of this, or even, hear me out, Gosford Park. We all know Civil War, a huge set piece in the middle of the movie, and the ending is substantially scaled down and more intimate by comparison. In Gosford Park, which has no huge IMAX-worthy set piece per se, but that movie takes some time to build up to the main event of the movie, and then the last third of the movie is exploring the fallout of that event and the truth behind why it happened. It's one of the best mystery plots in a movie, and since all shows these days seems to require the mystery box, there had better be a sublime unboxing for whatever this one turns out to be. We don't always get what we want, I guess. I'm just hoping for a good ending, honestly. That seems to be an elusive beast for creators these days. Make it so, Tim Castillo."
Thank you, Tim. Yeah.
Thank you, man.
I really hope he's right that it'll be a good ending. Yeah, there's nothing more toxic, I feel like, than the mystery box idea. In the last... Well, I don't mind a mystery. But the idea of the mystery box, as laid out by J.J. Abrams, is basically mystery, but with no answer. That's his whole thing. And it's so dumb. It's such a dumb thing. It's hey, mystery. It's basically mystery keeps people watching shows, which is true. But if you don't have a payoff for the mystery, it's just bonkers. But what I love right now is we had, Tim talks about a moral question, and I love that we had a moral question this episode, and that Picard chose wrong. I love it. I love it so much. I love that Picard is choosing himself and his family in this moment. That is definitely the wrong decision, and hopefully his tactics and his brilliance of leadership will be able to get them out of the situation without any deaths. But what if we've seen the trailers where LaForge looks like he's really angry with Picard.
Yeah.
What if young LaForge dies at the hands of Vadic because he made the wrong decision?
Yeah.
He just put LaForge's daughter in danger, one of 500 that he put in danger, to save his own son.
Yeah.
Even if she doesn't die, which I'm hoping doesn't happen, by the way. But even if she doesn't die, I'm already on LaForge's side. It makes sense that LaForge is pissed off. If he catches up with them at some point, shows up to help, whatever, and then he's you got my daughter in this situation to save your own kid who you've never even met. And you'd made that decision. You've put this whole thing at risk because you wanted to save your child, and my child was on the bridge, and you didn't even give that a second thought.
Yeah, dude, that would be great if they brought that up.
It's so good. It's such a good setup. because he just made a bad decision. Like, not necessarily. He made a human decision, and that's what I love about that moment.
He made Kirk in Star Trek 3's decision. Needs of the few, or the one, outweighs the needs of the many. He, takes the ship, screws over Captain Styles, who is basically the original Shaw, like I was talking about. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things I think would turn this around for me, like turn around the idea of them kind of like picking so heavily from Wrath of Khan and Search for Spock, the Genesis trilogy or whatever. Don't get me started on how much they grabbed from Star Trek 4 last season. But, just like, if the way they do about this is they say, like, look, the crew was like wholeheartedly with Kirk. Let's screw it all up. Needs of the few outweigh the needs of the many in the movies. I like the idea of the next gen crew kind of turning around on Picard and being like, you're messing with our kids now.
Yeah.
And being somewhat against that and being against him. Right.
Well, Vadic is after them, and it's like, Vadic seems really powerful. Her ship is really powerful. The Shrike is really, really powerful. And she seems to have a lot of knowledge about everyone. So, like, what if she, like, goes around them and goes and pursues other people that Picard loves? You know what I mean? Like, or Riker. Or, like, what if she goes after Deanna? Yeah. And, like, that's how Deanna gets on the ship, is because they have to save her from the Shrike, as Vadic is, like, hailing hell down on Pente or whatever. Nepenthe?
Right. Nepenthe, yeah.
Is it Nepenthe, the planet they're on?
And I'm still wondering how all the aftermath of the Dominion War plays into this, because
that's
Metalis
right,
has said that.
God.
And, he said in a new interview that the way he got LeVar Burton was he pitched the ending to LeVar Burton, and he made LeVar Burton cry, and he was like, holy shit, I'm making Geordi LaForge cry, and now I'm crying.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, no, I'm super excited, man. This first episode, or the second episode, I kind of wish we'd gotten to it at once, because the first episode was fine, but nothing stood out to me. But this episode just got me lit up, man. I'm really excited.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's interesting how you and I have different reactions on these things sometimes.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
All right, John Plays What at gmail.com says, headcanon, Bev's son and Titan crew. I tweeted all of this mid-listen, but didn't wait to hear the email address, so... Headcanon, Picard's son looking older than 20. You know who else had Picard's DNA and was specifically cloned to age rapidly? Shinzon. What if Beverly cloned Shinzon using the bloody blade he gave them in Nemesis to try and find a cure/treatment for Picard's Irumodic syndrome? Plus, the actor looks like he could be a young Tom Hardy lookalike. Also, my own headcanon, the Titan bridge crew getting so much more screen time. What if Titan A gets obliterated and Shaw dies, hopefully, and Seven gets her own command, Voyager B? And the remaining Titan crew gets assigned there. Just a full circle thought for Seven and a way to spin off a new series. Thank you, John.
Yeah, no, I love that. I don't know if it'll need to go that way, but I love that idea that, like, Jack is a clone of Shinzon. But I feel like if she's gonna clone Picard, she probably has access to his DNA and doesn't need to, like, get Shinzon involved. We don't need to get Nemesis involved in this at all. Like, we just don't need to bring it up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And Irumodic syndrome was one of several issues it could have turned into. That was just from All Good Things. So, it seems like that's probably just not the way they're going. He does look like a young Tom Hardy, though, for sure.
Yeah, totally see it. I totally see it, which makes a lot of sense why they would, like, draw that connection, and I love it. That's a great call.
As far as Voyager B, I'm pretty sure Voyager A is still around. If we're looking at, like, Prodigy and stuff.
Yeah.
They actually name dropped the Voyager A in there.
Yes.
And I don't want Shaw to die. I want him to actually, grow as a character, be a little well-rounded, maybe be the main captain in a new Star Trek series.
I would like it. I would love it. I like Shaw so much because like he's just so against type of all the captains we've seen up close. You know what I mean? Like we see these types of guys who are sort of assholes, but they're normally like the admiral or a different captain who they're having to deal with. This is just great. I love having this like weird captain that's just sort of like they just have to convince to be involved with all their shenanigans.
Yeah. And personally, like I think it would be great if I think Seven needs to leave Starfleet. I think that is I don't think she should be in Starfleet.
I don't know. I know she's having problems with Shaw, but like and she has problems in general with Starfleet and like the chain of command, and she's used to being a Fenris Ranger, but like that's the whole. It would feel a little like back and forth because that was the whole development of last season is her being like, you know what, I've been on my own long enough. I miss being a part of this like team. I'm joining up, and so for it to just like into this season be like, well, she's not anymore. Like it would just feel a little yo-yo-y.
One of the things I noticed is like this season is also playing heavily into like the corruption of Starfleet, like Starfleet ignoring worlds that need their help, you know, Federation worlds that the Federation has forgotten.
Really, season 1 was even stronger with that, with all the Romulan stuff. So I definitely think that's like a thing that's happening in this entire era of Trek, I guess.
But what's also interesting is the second episode here, the one we just watched. Right out of the gate, they're showing the Fenris Rangers and how corrupt they are.
Yeah.
They're basically dead naming 7 of 9.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Shaw is. And meanwhile, the people she was involved with are also bad. So
sure.
I think it's interesting to see for a 7 of 9's perspective. And I guess if she has to stay in Starfleet, she would maybe be a captain and be called like, you know, Captain 9 or something. Like, or maybe she could, you know, I don't know.
You say they're bad. You say the Fenris Rangers are bad, but at the same time, like, their whole thing is they're trying to protect worlds that don't have protection. And so if a guy shows up on their doorstep and says, hey, I just want to help people, but by the way, I can give you a bunch of guns, which will help you in your mission.
Right.
Like, I don't know I mean, yes, it seems corrupt because he's literally saying he's bribing them. Also, I thought it was strange when the Fenris Rangers show up, they say something about, you're breaking Federation code something, which I thought was interesting that I always thought the Fenris Rangers were just like this sort of ragtag team of protectors trying to protect the areas that Starfleet had abandoned, but they seem to be enforcing Starfleet law, which was weird.
I don't remember if he said Starfleet. He said it was like 27 laws, but
yeah,
in violation of like 27 codes or something.
He says Federation codes, which was weird. I thought was weird, but yeah, it's interesting.
Well, if it's like Federation, if it's a Federation system.
But the Fenris Rangers are supposed to be in systems that are technically not anymore, right? Like they're places that they abandoned when they like shrunk back or something.
What's weird about that then is that like Jack and the Helios are outside of Federation jurisdiction. That's why Shaw didn't want to go there.
Right. Which, no, I think that's exactly right. I think that's the case that like they're outside of Federation space, but I guess the Fenris Rangers maybe like try to enforce Federation law outside, even though they're not technically in the Federation anymore. It's weird. It's strange.
I mean, they go aboard and they're like, oh, look at all this contraband. Look at all these stolen Federation things. Hey, I bet you stole a bunch of shit and you're in violation of at least 27 codes. Like,
yeah, like we could turn you in maybe is like the idea.
Right. We could turn you in. What do you got to say to that? Maybe you'll give us a bribe. Look at this. Are you trying to bribe us? No, not with that, but with this. Okay, cool. Like, I think the whole thing was a song and dance to like work out a deal, but he also clearly had a deal with somebody because the Fenris Ranger like said, yeah, he's here. So I think he was working with Vadic in the first place.
Yes, I think so too. What did Jack do to bring Vadic down like this? Like Yeah,
I don't know, but that's why I think it's got to have something to do with vengeance. But I do think there's a possibility that Seven could really want to get out of Starfleet and go back to the Fenris Rangers, and then realize how crooked it is there as well, and that you have to be the change and all that bullshit. But like every place is a little bad,
right? Yeah, you just got to choose to be the person who's a little different wherever you are.
Mm-hmm. Stu's got a couple of emails for us. Hello, welcome back to me. I mean, someone should welcome me since you guys couldn't get last week's episode out fast enough to deny me a timely say, but it's fine. Really. So I'm getting my thoughts on the Season 3 Picard premiere in now, just in case you pull that stuff again. It was enjoyable and solid, but my god, was it tropey and a bit on the nose. I really am not digging the real-worldification of personal phasers more modern Trek has gone through. It seems silly enough that they ditched continuous beams, but now we have shotgun phasers? How does that make any sense mechanically or even just in terms of making them more effective? I mean, remember what those things did to Remick in Conspiracy? Yeah. I'm really grateful that Raffi said out loud over transmitter that she was a Starfleet intelligence officer, because not only is that totally something a covert operative would do rather than speak in code, it also made sure that I, a dumb idiot, knew what was going on, because I couldn't possibly have picked up on that from context. I didn't even think about that, Stu. That's pretty good. After all the trouble they went to give Picard a girlfriend last year, I really do hope Laris comes back later in the season to be useful. Kind of weird that I've seen her do more cool spy shit in a canonically dubious prequel comic miniseries than I have in the actual show. Quote, actually it's Deanna and Kestra who could use the break from me. End quote. Riker Troy marital woes, this is Worf's chance to get in on the rebound. It's not too late for Kestra to be the son he's always wanted. Again, with the Federation forget some people, so some Starfleet types have to become Mavericks to make a real change storyline. Not only is this also covered a lot by Mariner and Lower Decks and some of the bureaucracy policy we saw in Prodigy, but it was already a thing in Season 1 of this show and is probably going to be a bit of a thing with number 1 in Strange New Worlds Season 2. I feel we're like 2 rotations away from a full-blown all-Starfleet or Bastards plotline because they can't think of how to do conflict without making their idealistic future society actually a mirror for present-day stuff. And they still haven't done it in a way as deftly as Deep Space Nine did it. Damn, Stu, taking no prisoners!
Mm-hmm.
Shit.
Stu is not happy.
Stu is not happy. So not only is I thought I was the bad guy this episode, but Stu just swooped in, shriked in,
Yep.
Just picking it apart bit by bit.
Full complement of all them missiles.
Yeah. So not only is Seven first officer on Riker's old ship, but we also have Geordi's daughter, who is apparently a speed demon of a pilot. Damn Nepo babies. Incidentally, it was nice of them to signpost ahead of time what Sydney will be doing in the finale to help out with the speed demon exposition. I like Shaw too, and I'm partly on his side with regards to not letting Riker and Picard tell him what to do. Like, remember when Decker seemed like a tight-ass spoil sport in the motion picture, but he actually prevented Kirk from accidentally blowing up the ship because he didn't know what he was doing? It's like we got that scene one time, but ever since, this franchise cannot let the main character ever be wrong like that again. So the people they disagree with have to have the scales tipped against them. Not so much on the Borg hate. Starfleet's HR department is really lacking, but I've seen speculation we're going to find out he has Wolf 359 related reasons for that. Also, I'm not going to consider him a pretentious prick just because he likes listening to classical music while eating dinner, because 1, everybody in Star Trek TNG era listens to classical music. Nobody's ever an avid fan of 20th century adult contemporary, which is a shame, because if Shaw had been, he could have found out Picard's opinion of Phil Collins at last. 2, Riker is a white Alaskan guy who plays jazz trumpet. He's not one to talk. Picard talking about having an adrenaline rush just made me sad because it reminded me of how little they've done with his synthetic body. I am against that guy being Picard's son. Firstly, because it's tropey and really being done to death lately with legacy sequels. Not to mention the fact it's not something Picard needs as a character. That guy lived his life that way because he chose to, knowing where it could go. Just giving him an easy do-over like this just cheapens it for me. Also, I'm supposed to think that Crusher either failed to practice safe sex despite being a doctor, or that she perhaps intentionally got pregnant without Picard's knowledge. But good thing that, the actor is too old for it to make sense with the timeline, so, oh no, he's from the future, isn't he? He's from a possible dark future where Federation is all fascist and he's came back in time to prevent it, and that's why Beverly said don't trust anyone from Starfleet. Depending on how it goes, you may just be immediately reading my next email after this or not, so bye, be right back. Our next email is from Stu. Titled, Nobody Puts Baby in the Corner in Space. Hello again. I know I misspelled Starfleet as Starfleet in the end of my last email, but that wasn't a typo. That's on Dave's other alter, Boston Jimmy. Oh, God. I try to repress him as much as possible, but he's wicked tenacious.
For those of you just joining us, Stu is an alternate personality of Dave's.
He's not really. Stu keeps saying he is, but he's not.
Canonically to our show, he's...
I do have an alternate, but he's a socially inept baby turtle. It's right. Not Stu Lil. Stu says, finally some other Fenris Rangers. Admittedly corrupt ones who sold Jack out and didn't get to do anything really cool Fenris Rangery, but still. That one scarred up New Zealander was cool. Was Rafi's ex-husband's jacket like that because of fashion, or was he doing some painting before showing up to their meeting? His ultimatum was a bit of a dick move. Someone needs to tell him about the needs of the many. Shaw gets it. He's right about the 500 souls on his crew versus Jack's. I believe it is afternoon in the Sol system. Yeah, somewhere, technically, I suppose. Yeah, I did think about that.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point.
Vadic's great. I love Plummer's easy overconfidence in the details, like lighting up while letting the Titan confirm her ship's weapons. By the way, was that a Jem'Hadar as part of the bridge crew? I didn't see a Jem'Hadar. All I saw was all the creatures who look like the Executioner from the X-Men.
I didn't see that either. That's interesting.
I didn't. Stu says, I also liked Sneed. It's nice to once again see a Ferengi who's actually sinister and a threat, at least for a couple of minutes, and not just played as weaselly and comedic. His fur coat also seems like a nice call back to their first appearance in the last Outpost. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Okay, Worf being Rafi's contact was a pretty awesome reveal, as was him getting to majorly kick ass.
Yeah.
Hey, Stu didn't see it coming.
And it's good to see, it is really good to see Worf showing up and kicking ass, you know? We always think of him as like a warrior, but like so often he doesn't get to actually do anything.
Well, a lot of times, like that's what they they would just have like the big bad guy beat the shit out of Worf to prove how tough they are.
Right.
And they very rarely actually showed Worf doing anything. So I'm like, was he really a great warrior?
Exactly. But this was nice to see.
Why is Shaw letting Picard belay his orders? Isn't he technically in custody and retired?
Was he in custody? I don't think Picard was in custody.
I don't know.
I think he just like he chews him out and he takes Jack into custody. But I don't think Picard was in custody. Because if Picard and Riker were in custody, it also doesn't make sense that Riker was like free to roam the ship and go like wake up Crusher.
Right. Quote, because he's my son. Stu responds, boo. And we end on a chase into a cloud because this franchise can't get past Wrath of Khan after 31 years.
Yeah. Thank
you, Stu. Thank Thank you.
We had a lot more people write in. Stu doesn't get to be the decider this time.
Those people didn't say anything about this.
Exactly. So they were all on my side.
No, they weren't.
By omission.
They were talking about other shit.
Exactly. They didn't think of the Wrath of Khan thing.
That was never in the charter. That was never in the No. That wasn't in the contract. Stu was our decider if we have a disagreement, and Stu has sided with me. Thank you, Stu.
I never agreed to that. I think we agreed to that on one specific issue last season.
I don't know. I don't even know what we're talking about. But I don't remember the contract. I just remember there was one.
So silly.
Stu is in my corner. I win.
Thank you, Stu. Those are all really good, fun points, and always funny writing in. Funny stuff.
That's all we got.
All right. Well, I'm really freaking excited about this next episode.
I want to see more.
Yeah. Me too, man. Me too.
I'm ready to love or hate unabashedly.
Well, me too. Me too. And I guess we'll see you guys then. We're only a couple days away from the new episode dropping, so we'll talk to you guys in a couple of days.
Hopefully, maybe.
Jolan True.
Live long, and y'all be prospering.
Be prosper.
What?
Thank you for listening to the Star Trek Universe Podcast, a Stranded Panda production. If you'd like to hear more from David C. Robertson, check out the DC On Screen podcast or maladjusted.tv for his web videos. If you'd like to hear more from Matthew Carroll, check out the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast or listen to his music. Just search for Matthew Carroll anywhere you get music.